Hello and welcome to TSK F1. How are you doing today, guys? My name's Rich and this is your daily dose of F1 news. Now, first of all, I did just want to bring your attention to a couple of sort of community-based things that we're doing with TSK F1. First of all, we've got the F1 Fantasy League, which you can find down in the description, a link to it. It uses an app on your iOS or Android device, and we've got over 80 people involved in the league so far. You've got to sign up before the qualifying starts on Saturday in Bahrain, though. So there is a link down in the description for you to get involved in that. And secondly, last night I created the TSK Discord. So if you use Discord, then please do get involved. There's a link to that down in the description as well. And in there, basically, the community can continue whenever TSK isn't live or on video and things like that. If you don't know what Discord is, it's a community app which is available on PC, Android, iOS, and you can chat and you can have voice calls and you can do all sorts in there. Basically, yeah, get involved, guys. It's down in the description. Good morning, everyone. How are we doing? Please do make sure you're hitting the like on the stream and subscribing down below. So let's get into the first bit of news, shall we? Which is Kevin Magnussen. Just a little story here for Kevin Magnussen, where he was saying how he felt pretty horrible last season in terms of fitness and everything. Now, you might recall, I think, was it last season, that he got that late call because of, the Mazepin things, and we won't get into all that stuff. But he said he felt very bad, actually, last year. So it's really good to have the pre-season this season and be properly ready for it. Yeah, God, honestly, Paul, it feels so long ago now. It feels so long ago. But then he says we're competing against other people, and you have to hope that they're feeling pretty bad as well. But we'll see. I mean, it's testing. We try to keep our mind away from concluding where we are or anything like that, and just focus on testing and learning. And it just really shows, doesn't it, that you've got drivers like Kevin Magnussen, and we also saw last season Nick de Vries take to the wheel. And he was absolutely spent after Monza, wasn't he, Nick de Vries? And he's a professional career racing driver. He was the official reserve driver, and he was basically ready to go. But he was still absolutely wrecked after Monza, was Nick de Vries. So I can understand where Kevin Magnussen's coming from, because I've seen multiple quotes from many drivers where they're basically saying that WEC and IndyCar, while they're sort of challenging on a fitness level, F1 is in a world of its own in terms of what it does to your body and how prepared you need to be for it. And I think it's all to do with the G-forces and everything, isn't it? The cornering speeds and all that good stuff. Because we've seen even recent drivers who have been in for McLaren because of that they've got a few IndyCar drivers, haven't they? And they've all been quoted as saying how sort of rough it is to drive Formula One cars. So it'll be interesting to see Kevin Magnussen into this season. Is fitness in a better place, and will he be faster and things like this? Nico Hülkenberg has also actually commented on this, obviously Magnussen's teammate this season, about it being difficult and being ready for this season. But the professionals, they know where they need to be, and it's just, I do wonder how many times throughout a season maybe a driver just feels it that bit more than they let on, and that they're pretty tired. And that's the thing that Michael Schumacher excelled in back in the day. He would get out of the car and not have broken a sweat, whereas other drivers would be in bits. And it would just be that mental mind games, that just gives him that immediate sort of bonus. And obviously, if a driver's fit, it's one less thing they're considering. They're not thinking about how they're tired and how they're knackered. They can just keep a focus on the driving and the systems in the car and things like that. But just an interesting little tidbit there from Kevin Magnussen, where he's talking about his fitness and last season it being pretty horrible. I don't know what commands are. I wouldn't bother doing that. I haven't set up any commands at all, Jambo. No commands are sorted at all. Now, a little bit of a story here. Potentially, maybe. Now, we all know that it kicked off last season between Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen, and there are lots of theories as to why it all kicked off and why it went wrong and stuff like this. And there's basically quotes that have come out from Sergio Perez saying it's always important to work as a team, and obviously if I see that I don't receive support when I need it, I won't give it either. That's obvious, but I don't expect any of that. I think we are very clear that about the important thing. It will be a very intense season, surely with 6 cars fighting for the championship. So it will be very important to work as a team in many races. Is anyone else interested by those comments from Sergio Perez? Now, a lot has been made of the fact that Daniel Ricciardo's now back in the team over there at Red Bull, and he's you wonder whether Checo would be looking over his shoulder, but him saying, if I don't receive any support when I need it, I won't give it either. Excuse me. Now, that isn't the talk of a second driver. That isn't talk of someone playing the game, when a lot of people are thinking that Daniel Ricciardo is going to take his seat. Now, do you think Checo, I'd love to know your opinion in chat, do you think Checo has got any chance at all against Max Verstappen? And do you think he can do anything? And beyond that, do you think Red Bull will force him to play the team orders game? Because I can't help but feel if he doesn't, then that's him done, right? Because, look, for me, Max Verstappen's the number one, isn't he? He's the double world champion. Some weekends he makes it look easy when Checo isn't anywhere near. There are honestly parallels to be brought from Lewis Hamilton and Bottas. That some weekends Lewis Hamilton used to make it look easy when Bottas would struggle, and it's a difficult one. Checo gonna be like a ball. I ain't moving over for Max. Imagine that. Jambo, I personally don't think he has it in him to win the driver's title, but we'll be interested to see if he can push for it. Certainly seems like that's his aim. Glad he can never beat him over a full season, just won't happen. This is the thing. Where was it? Was it up to about Monaco that Checo was in mathematical contention last season, and then Max just started to pull away? It's going to be interesting. I'm not normally into controversy and stuff. I really aren't. It normally annoys me, but I would like a situation to present itself early on in the season where Checo is in front of Max, and just to see if that call comes and to see what Checo does, and to see if he's about that fight, if he wants that fight, and to see what happens, you know. The first couple of races determine the roles of both drivers. Good morning, everyone. I'm not being rude. Good morning, everyone. How are we doing? All team decisions will be based around Max. Hard to see Checo winning much other than the constructors as part of Red Bull. Fighting a bit of a losing battle, if you ask me. Yeah, I mean, look, I've always been of the opinion that the golden rule, obviously, should be don't crash into your teammate. That should always be the golden rule. And for me, I would say to them, be sensible, but go racing. Until a point, the team decides a driver is showing themselves to be having the best push, you know, for a title. And I mean that as well. If you got to the halfway stage and for whatever reason, let's say, even if it was reliability and Checo was over 100 points ahead of Max, maybe Max has horrific luck with with reliability and stuff, you have got to start looking at it. But I don't see it happening. You know, that it would take some seriously special circumstances for me. I think the thing is, Checo's got the car, hasn't he? You know, and it would be him doing a terrible job if he wasn't somewhere near. Like, if he's anywhere out of the top 3, you'd think he's doing a not so great job in that Red Bull. Because I think most pundits, you guys agree that Red Bull still looks the class of the field. We'll find out this weekend, of course. But you'd have to say if he isn't up there, then he's not doing a great job. How much impact do you think the Red Bull wind tunnel time will have had over the course of the season? Not much. I honestly don't think it's going to have much impact at all, but that's my opinion. I don't think I've really shared that. I've always said, look at what Toto Wolff says, look at what Christian Horner says, and then go somewhere in the middle. Now on that, just as a side note, I did see the report. I think I reported it yesterday, that and a publication out of Germany thinks that the Red Bull is 0.6 faster than the Mercedes and 2 to 4 tenths faster than the Ferrari. But we'll see. And over the course of the season, who knows? Who knows over the course of the season, you know? But those quotes, those are some fighting quotes. Probably they're surprising quotes from Checo, because again, you know, Daniel Ricciardo's right there. Is right there. Now, I did say this at the beginning of the stream. I did just want to bring a couple of things to your guys' attention. We are running a Fantasy F1 League. It's an app which is on iOS and Android, and there's a link down in the description to that. If you want to join our Fantasy F1 League, please do. It's in the description down below, and there's a link. And also, because quite a few people requested it, I created the TSK Discord yesterday as well, and there's a link to that down in the description if you would like to join that. So, let's move on now to Ted Kravitz. Ted Kravitz has been talking again. Now, people already think he's biased towards Mercedes, and this probably won't change that opinion. But there was just some interesting quotes that I think make you just think about things, maybe, you know. And Ted Kravitz has said that there's a reasonably commonly held opinion among people in the paddock that they only changed the rules, or part of the reason why they changed the rules in F1 was to stop Mercedes dominance. And he said, well, that certainly worked, didn't it? Right? And you know what? On the face of it, I think I'm on board with that. I think I'm on board with simply saying Formula One changed the rules to stop the Mercedes dominance. I think I'm on board with that, because when you look back through history in Formula One, it's happened many times. You can look back to the Schumacher era. McLaren had rules changed against them. Red Bull had rules changed against them. Now, they're never going to say we've changed the rules because of this team or that team, but they can take the data and they can look at a team and go, what makes that team so fast? You know, what makes that team tick? And why do they have that advantage over and above the drivers? What is that car doing differently to the other cars? How can we shake this up to try and close the pack up and have someone else win? And I think history shows that Formula One does that. So I don't think there's any controversy there. I think maybe a Red Bull fan or two would take exception to that, but I think it's quite true. But he also says they also changed the rules with the stated aim of improving the racing. It did do that to a large degree, but in 21, the championship was decided on the last lap, and in 22, it was decided in Japan with 4 races to go. So it didn't really do what it was meant to do, did it? And that's a curious point, actually, isn't it? I suppose with the big regulations change that we got into the last season, it can always be the case that one team gets it better than the other and that larger gaps form. But it is a curious point that in trying to maybe pull back the Mercedes dominance that we saw, that they may have allowed an other team to begin an era of dominance because they've nailed the regulations. Now, I don't care. I always want to see a close championship, and ideally a championship close and not ending like Abu Dhabi. I still maintain I don't care who won it. It was a bad look for Formula One, all of that nonsense. And I think everyone really wants close racing. Even me, as a Schumacher fan growing up, I understood why other people didn't like him and why they were bored of Formula One. I get it. And the same in the more recent Lewis Hamilton era. You know, if there's got to be Lewis Hamilton fans out there that look at it and go, yeah, I get why people were turned off, you know, because it doesn't make for an exciting sport. While, honestly, the mid-pack of Formula One is incredible racing, we don't get to, you only really think of the winner, right? But they're just interesting comments there from Ted Kravitz. I can see why people might be offended if they're too much Mercedes or too much Red Bull, because Mercedes will feel victimized that the rules were changed against them, and Red Bull will think it's some kind of excuse. But I think it is quite an interesting point, and I think it's quite true. We've seen it lots. We have seen it lots. Please do remember to hit that like on the stream, guys. Think it probably turned off a lot of our father's generation. Now, actually, we could digress and have a little bit of a chat about this. I think me and John have spoken about. Obviously, John is big part of TSK. Has anyone else got sort of dads, mums, relatives, sort of older, that don't watch Formula One anymore because it's not like it used to be? This is a proper digression, and nobody might respond. But me and John were speaking about the fact both of our fathers literally don't care about Formula One anymore. Whereas when I was a kid, my dad was insane on Formula One. Like insane. I remember, you know, my earliest memories are all to do with Formula One and watching it with my dad. And just a little bit of a digression there. Does anyone else have relatives that have, in, I don't know, the last 15 years just don't care about Formula One anymore? I'd be interested to know. Just let me know in the chat. Just because it's not what it used to be in their opinion, you know? Now, big bit of news, I suppose. Well, big bit of news, conversation piece. Lewis Hamilton. Now, I know people will either, you know, like, they'll either love him or they hate him, or there's somewhere. I like what he has to say in a lot of circumstances. I'm not what you would call a fan. I don't own any Mercedes merch. I don't own any Lewis Hamilton merch. The same way I don't own any Max Verstappen or Red Bull stuff. But I don't dislike Lewis Hamilton. And there's just some quotes coming from Jenson Button, which I thought were interesting and worth a discussion. Now, I've got a poll open in the chat, which is, will Hamilton retire at the end of his contract? With 82% of you saying no at the minute. So I just thought I'd bring these quotes to you guys and we could have a chat. And really, this last section is completely reliant on you guys and your interaction with me, because it is to have a chat about. But it is basically Jenson Button talking about why would Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes be waiting on signing a contract? Now, I think his contract runs to the end of this season, the end of 2023. And Jenson Button is saying, he was speaking to the Telegraph, and he said it has to be that he's wanting to know how competitive they are this season, right? Why otherwise would you leave it this late? He knows how annoying we all are asking about the contract. I mean, we've got to ask the question, but he's going to hate answering it over and over and over and over again. It can only be because he's wondering how competitive the car will be. Is he going to sign if the car is uncompetitive because he wants to be quick again before he retires? I don't know. Now, this is a long time to wait, though, TCC. I don't think... I feel like this is a specifically longer amount of time than previously for me, because the timing is going to be very interesting, I think. I don't think it's a bad point. I don't think it's a bad point that Jenson Button is making, right? Because there has to be a point, doesn't there? And this was Jenson Button's thing, when he could no longer command or get a car that he could win races with. Jenson Button said goodbye then. Now, I know Jenson Button isn't Lewis Hamilton, but he's a fairly straight-talking guy and honest about that. And whenever Lewis Hamilton is on the grid, people want the Max Verstappen battle. People want all of that, don't they? Now, is Lewis Hamilton waiting for after Bahrain or the following races maybe just to go, you know what, we can work with this, or at least we're very much going in the right direction and things are looking all right? Now, look, 82% of you are saying no, Hamilton won't retire at the end of his contract. And I suppose I shouldn't have made it as binary as yes or no. But I think now there's a stronger possibility than there ever has been. Now, I'd said he could retire before when the car was competitive, and admittedly I was wrong, obviously. But I was saying there's got to be a point where he, you know, isn't too bothered with continuing. And I think, like it or not, Lewis Hamilton does things outside of his day job, being a racing driver, doesn't he? And I'm wondering when he'll get to the point that he wants to go and do those things rather than being a racing driver and stuff. Nick's saying, I don't think people will appreciate what Lewis Hamilton has done until he's gone, but I don't think he'll retire until he's won his 8th World Championship, if it's possible at all. That's the thing, isn't it? That's the thing. Is he sitting there thinking, like, can I do, like, I'm sure he's thinking he can do it, but can he obtain it with the Mercedes? You know, it's two questions, isn't it? John says, I don't think Hamilton knows himself. A bad season this season will either see one last go at it, or he may just call it a day. Yeah, and I mean, for what it's worth, it's either call it a day, or I think he could sign a contract to the end of 2025. I think Lewis Hamilton, it makes sense age-wise and regulation-wise for him to sign until the next big regulation change. If he can, and that's just my opinion, I feel like he might do that, and then at the next regulation change, I think he'll be 40. And will he want to take on another regulation change and move forward? I mean, he knows a lot more about Mercedes than we do and what's going on internally. Excuse me. And how things are looking. Ian says, Merc driver swap with McLaren next season, next year with Lewis and Lando. Don't see that at all, Ian. I with the greatest respect in the world, and I've shown respect to McLaren lots and lots and lots on TSK, I cannot for the life of me understand why Lewis Hamilton would ever go back to McLaren. And I think they all hold a special place in his heart, and he's spoken on that he is always looking out for them in the results and stuff. But that's quite a different thing for him to go and drive there. You know, I just don't see it being a thing. I think it'd be lovely. But I just don't. Yeah, I don't see that personally. I think Lewis has no reason to. He has nothing left to prove, and I think the only thing that he would, again, I don't know Lewis Hamilton. This is an interesting thing, isn't it? Because we all do this. We all share our opinion on what another person is doing, but we don't know any of them. But I feel like the only thing Lewis Hamilton would probably be bothered about is the 8th. You know, I think he's got basically every other record, hasn't he? And going to McLaren, he isn't. I mean, look, unless something insane happens at McLaren, he's not going to win a title there, is he? You know, I don't see him going there. I don't see him going to McLaren at all. Heard rumours about Merckx start contract negotiation with Lewis. Meanwhile, Lewis said he's not done with racing. Well, no, indeed. He's said that lots. He said it at the launch of the car. And him and Toto were grinning at each other like they've got a plan. And one of the big hold-ups seems to be agreeing the post-contract, the post-race driving contract part where they're wanting him to, and he wants to be a Mercedes ambassador post-racing career. And I think one of the hold-ups is that, and the big thing around Lewis Hamilton, again, people who aren't fans of his won't really like this idea, but it's image rights as well, right? The brand of Lewis Hamilton is worth a lot of money, much like Messi or Ronaldo or back in the day David Beckham or Michael Schumacher. These things are worth so much money. Simply by having Lewis Hamilton associated with you is worth a lot of money. I mean, look, the reality is, imagine Lewis Hamilton in some way tied with TSK F1. It's huge. It's that kind of thing, right? And he's got all these sponsorships and personal things, you know? So that'll be I should imagine with someone like Lewis Hamilton, that is an exceptionally complicated thing to figure out. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys, doesn't he do his own contracts now? I'm sure, what was it, like 3-4 seasons ago, he started doing his own contracts as well. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he does. Please do remember to hit that like on the stream, guys. It really, really helps. Can't see Lewis leaving for another 4, maybe 5 seasons. I can. Honestly, Prime, I like your optimism. I don't see Lewis Hamilton going for another 5 seasons. I don't see that myself. I think logic, for me, says up to the end of 2025 makes sense, and see where things are at that point, because again, we've got that big regulation change in 26, haven't we? That makes sense for me. Any plans to invite Lewis here for a live stream? You know what? There's no reason why we can't try and get some F1 peeps on the podcast. It happens, doesn't it? So all you've got to do is ask, is there anyone you guys would like to see, and I will reach out to them. If Lewis partnered with TSKF1, this channel would have 5 million subscribers in no time. But that's kind of my point, isn't it? That's kind of my point, that image rights, as much as people don't like it, like, look at him on this picture, the watch, you know, and everything. It's all about image, isn't it? It's all about image. I reckon he'll do a year at Ferrari, then retire, but I don't know what season that will be. If everyone likes the stream, you've got a better chance. That's true. Yeah, I've said this for a long time, Gled. I want to see Lewis Hamilton in a Ferrari. I'm not a Lewis Hamilton fan. I'm not a Ferrari fan, but Ferrari is Formula One. Formula One is Ferrari, much like Monaco is Formula One. You know, there are certain things associated with Formula One that are ever present as much as Formula One itself, and it would feel right, even if it was a bad season, that Lewis Hamilton drives a Ferrari for a season. And I've said this for a good few years now. I'd really like to see that. You can name pretty much anyone you'd consider a great within the sport, nearly anyone, and they've done a stint at Ferrari. And it's just something I've wanted to see for I don't know, 3 or 4 years, that I've wanted to see him make quite a shock move. Now there's a driver swap Ooh. Now, who was it earlier? Ian said driver swap McLaren next year, Lewis and Lando. What about a driver swap Lewis and Leclerc? What about that? What about that? Because for the first time we had murmurings out of Charles Leclerc about potential life beyond Ferrari as well. What about that? Ooh, Leclerc and George in a team. Ooh. Ooh. Ooh, that'd be it. Ooh. Ooh, I've never thought of that. I don't see it. But ooh. Oh, that's got a bit of something about it, hasn't it? That's got a bit of something about it, I think. But it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see because I think any team apart from Red Bull would have Lewis Hamilton like right now. So it's a curious one. Now, I've mentioned it a few times. Now, one moment. I will end this poll that you guys have brilliantly voted in. 80% of you think no, he won't retire at the end of his contract. I've mentioned it a few times. Down in the description, guys, there are a few links. One of the links is for a new Discord, which I've started for TSK because people were asking me in the watch along and I needed some time to get it started. I've now started it, so there's a link for a TSK Discord down below. And also the F1 Fantasy League that we've set up as well, in a link in the description. It's an app, it's absolutely free, it's available on iOS and Android. Please do come along, get your team done, get it done before qualifying in Bahrain and get involved in it. It should be quite a good league. There's tons of people in it, like over 80 people, and I'm looking forward to some bants about it. But there we are, guys. There we are. That is the end of, is it Wednesday? Wednesday's TSKF1 News Show. I'm really grateful that you guys came out and had a good chat with me. I'll be back tomorrow morning with more TSKF1 goodness. And don't forget, we've got the watch-alongs this weekend. I have put a little picture of what we're going to be broadcasting on the YouTube channel, and I'll put it in Discord as well. It's in Discord events. Yeah, I'm just covering everything apart from FP2 on Bahrain. I wish I could cover FP2, but I can't, unfortunately. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me, guys, and I will see you very soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.